So, uh, first of all, thank y'all for deciding to come. This most definitely is something that you didn't have to do. So I want to tip my hat to all of y'all because y'all decided to grow in this area. When I was given this assignment about spiritual embargoes, specifically satanic embargoes is what we're going to be looking at. I have, if some of y'all done caught my face throughout this week, I have been smiling because one, I'm excited because a lot of my teammates, my fellow soldiers, have been hitting, and whether you know it or not, they've been saying a lot of what this will cover. It's just from the other side, right? So I was glad that y'all were able to. If y'all did, y'all should have heard some strategies from the other side and how to combat that. I'll give you two major examples. Tim and Lady L yesterday, while you were writing down what they were saying, another ear should have opened and also let you know or give you privy to the other side of what we're praying. That gave you the behind the scenes of what it's going to take to pray people out from that place. I had a conversation with a lady on the side and I told her, she asked me, what did you catch? I said, well, I was hearing everything that you were saying, but everything that I was hearing also was letting me know about childhood trauma and how to pray, and that she's just one of 100,000, right? And so when we're praying for, yeah, if not millions, especially now, and when we're praying for the next generation, and you're looking at the atmosphere that they're growing up in, lady gave you a glimpse to the mindset behind the scene as to how to target your prayers and bring people out. Y'all get that? She let you know her heart posture behind the things that her parents did and didn't do. That is a strategy from the other side, how to pray people out. Now you go from just praying to over a blanket prayer to strategically hitting what it is that you need to be praying. So if you're given an assignment to pray over a specific group of people, one thing that you most definitely can look at is to is to target the prayer toward their heart, softening their heart. So what? So that they may receive the good news, turning that heart of stone into a heart of flesh. That's all in scripture. So with that being said, the other great example was Tim. We are now in a new space in place over in China Grove. Tim's very familiar with that place. Or how many more Tims are walking around in China Grove? Tim let us in on a strategy from the other side. The people that we drive past in China Grove, don't assume, just take assumption out of it and look at it like that's Tim. That could be a Tim, right? Because usually what he also did was let us know the mindset behind the people who are in bondage that way. So whenever you're called to a new area, wherever God has called you to, whether it's on your job, we know people on the job that use to cope. This generation is heavy in coping mechanisms that are unhealthy. Tim gave us a blueprint from the other side as to why they even went there in the first place. And a lot of them don't have a whole bunch of solid reasons. It wasn't that they had a horrible, horrible upbringing. It was something that they willed to do. And in them willing to do it, they did not count the cost. And then you have several years later of abuse. And Tim showed us that. So Lady L and Tim gave us great examples from the other side, how the enemy would kind of enter in. I'll give you this point, then I'm going to dive into satanic embargoes. Trauma, trauma, trauma is a huge gateway into anyone's lives, especially children. Especially children. Do not assume that as an elder or as a mom or as a dad, that your children that you're responsible for are exempt from childhood trauma. The enemy will use that to enter in. It's a whole circus show. It's a whole circus show. But that is most definitely a strategy of the enemy. He loves to use trauma. Write that down. Use that in your family. Use that in your coworkers. Use that. Because if you can track essentially where that trauma began, it's almost parallels as to how everything started to spiral out of control. Right? So yeah, that's a huge one. Those are two great examples of strategies from the other side. Trauma and then abuse, sense abuse, where that came in, heart posture behind somebody behind that, the mind behind somebody who deals with that. And then of course we see them both on the other side. We often see the final product on this side, but it's very important that as we're dealing with this, that we're gonna begin to deal with some of the things from the other side. So first things first, I'm gonna give you this working definition for what an embargo is. An embargo is any restriction or injunction imposed on a country, community, business, organization, or an individual. Why? To prevent participation with others to achieve prosperity. One more time. An embargo is any restriction or injunction imposed on a country, community, business, organization, individual to prevent participation with others to achieve prosperity. All right, I got one more to go with that because I'm building a foundation before we get into some conversation that we must have before we leave. A second working definition for embargo is it's an official ban on trade or other commercial activity on a particular country, community, group of people, individual. Country, community, group of people, individual. The second definition is it's an official ban on trade or other commercial activity with a particular country, community, group of people, and an individual. So let's deal with the why. Why are we talking about embargoes? It is my heart that we begin to identify the enemy behind the attacks. Pastor Robin said earlier that the devil is a legalist. An embargo is a legal act. An embargo is a legal act or a legal hindrance against a country, a community, a group of people, and an individual. Okay? So when you're saying for a community, if you're saying nobody in this community ever graduates high school and goes on to flourishing in their life, that's the highest level in this community. Nobody ever exceeds the 12th grade. My mom didn't do it. I didn't do it. My children haven't done it. If you go back, nobody else really has gotten out of grade school and done anything other than become restaurant employee, struggling financially, and it seemingly nobody ever can leave the place, and there's never seemingly any help to come into the place. Nothing goes out to help, nothing comes in to help. When a embargo is sanctioned or put into place for an individual, a group of people, a community, and or a nation, there is nothing going out, there is nothing coming in. It is being restricted. We know God has called us to freedom. So if you do not see the freedom in the area, do not just pass it off as, oh, this just happened. The enemy loves to use your ignorance against you because you are ignorant to these types of teaching. And the fact that you're in the room today, it will come up to you sooner than you think to identify the embargoes in your individual life, the embargoes that are facing your family, the embargoes that are placed on the community that we or you've been called to. China Grove, write that down, because that is a strategy to identify the embargoes placed on that place. And if you go to ALCI and you connect it to ALCI, just like Mama said, my spiritual mama over here, Auntie, we got to use these things to identify what it is that what we've been called to do over in China Grove. Identifying an embargo in an individual's life, in a community's life, in a nation's life. Okay. So that's why this teaching, you're listening and you're sitting in on this. Why? So that you can identify the activities of the enemy. And I'm going to put this out there and I'm going to say it because I know